Good afternoon, everyone. You're joining us live from the NAA Apartmentalized Conference for 2022. I might have said this once or twice today already, but if you're not here, why not? It is an amazing event this year. We have record attendance. There's so much energy. There's just the passion that we're known for in this industry is just coming out in leaps and bounds. I'm glad that you're watching, but next year you need to be here. Come to Atlanta. That's where we're headed. So today and now I'm actually joined by my friend Jaime, and we're going to be talking about how unconventional times call for unconventional thinking. And again, my name's Elizabeth. I'm actually your host today. And PropTalk is a property management podcast that's powered by Resman. So thanks for joining us. Jaime, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'm
exciting.
so excited.
Yeah, and I agree. NA is amazing. If you haven't been here, come.
It is.
It's a lot of energy, but have caffeine ready.
Well,
yeah, or not, or no
I was
caffeine.
gonna say, I don't know if you know this about me. I know you know me enough to know I have this energy level.
Yeah.
This is without caffeine.
Oh no, this is how I am without caffeine also.
Oh, hi.
Yeah.
Finally,
No, caffeine.
I have met my counterpart.
For me,
in the
caffeine is like
industry.
take a nap.
Oh,
I actually was gonna grab some on the way here, but I was like, no, that's a bad idea. I'll be more quiet.
Oh yeah. No, if I have caffeine, you'll have to peel me off the ceiling.
Oh yeah.
That's not good. That is not good for anyone.
But for
So,
the average person,
yes,
caffeine might be helpful.
It might be helpful. It might be helpful.
Yeah.
So first off, tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah.
And just a little quick, history about, what do you do in this industry?
Oh, cool. Yeah. So I'm vice president of sales at Anyone Home. I've been in the industry now for 12 years. I started on the technology side though. So early days when Entrata was property solutions, early product manager, worked on a bunch of their stuff. And then, I don't know, I've worked on mostly on the leasing side. So I've been very involved with, applications and CRMs and all that stuff. And then I transitioned on the sales side just because I love people. And that was 5 years
But you
ago.
came up through product originally.
Oh yeah. I managed engineers. I've been to India many times. I love product. I have to tell myself to not be a product manager all the time.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
So this is funny. So I was a product manager, but I didn't know I was one.
Yeah.
So I probably would have driven you nuts. I'm surprised that our developers and our engineers here at Resman did not get a rope and string me up.
Yes.
Because I did, what I've learned now is I did everything wrong.
Okay.
As far as how to communicate my vision and what I wanted. So I have mad respect for what you do, and I know the challenges. You'll be happy to know I'm a much better product manager now.
Good. Yeah.
I have learned a thing or two since then.
Yeah.
Because I'm from the opposite side. I came up through leasing.
Yeah.
So 15, 20, oh my God, 30 years ago.
Well, you were probably tired of when product managers would say, "Stop telling me what you want. Tell me the problem.
Yes.
Let's work on the solution together."
Yes.
And that's what I love about this industry and what I do is it's solving problems.
Yes.
It's just like puzzles, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we have these issues. How can we solve them? And sometimes you use unconventional thinking and you come up with ideas.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
and that's what we're going to talk about because we are in unconventional times right now.
Yes.
We've been what seems like an unconventional times now going, this will be coming up on 3 years if you think about it.
Absolutely.
Right. And, there's a lot of challenges that we've already overcome. I'm happy to see the leap forward in technology, even though we're still lagging, I think, to other industries, but it's not anywhere near what it was. But now there's this other challenge in the space about staffing. And, we've adopted some great technology solutions in the industry, a lot of self-serving, but now we have this different challenge because we can't seem to keep our labor force in place.
Yep.
The Great Resignation impacted, all of us. But I almost think that in our space, we maybe have gotten hit a little bit harder.
Yeah.
Because especially when it comes to front lines and our frontline staffing, because we might have always known we were essential workers. I say we because I was one of them. We've always known it, but really this highlighted it, and then the emotional toll, the wear and tear, if you will, on our frontline teams.
Yeah.
I really think kind of exacerbated the Great Resignation
Absolutely.
for our space.
Absolutely.
Because I think people were so beyond burnout.
Yeah.
Because it's different. It's one thing to deal with people coming into the grocery store that are challenged with the pandemic to buy groceries. It's another thing to work in their home and to be with them where they live day in and day out.
It's true.
So now, once again, as we're thinking about what does the future look like and what are the challenges of today and how can we use technology potentially to help solve for that, this is where we started talking about this episode.
Yeah.
Because I'm hearing from a lot of our customers about the number of open positions. I think one of the stats I shared at Resmania was there's about 11.6 million job openings in America.
Yes. Yeah.
and there's only 5.3 million people on
Unemployed,
unemployment.
yeah.
So that's this delta of 6 million people.
It's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people.
But we still have a job to get done.
Yes.
And we have supply chain issues, the cost, the expenses, inflation. So that's why I'm really excited to bring you into this conversation about, how can people use technology to, expand their reach in spite of having short staff.
Yeah.
And your solutions, we're not here to sell solutions, we're not talking about that, but I do think we need to talk a little bit about, the
Solutions
value
like centralization.
Yes. So
Yeah.
what kinds of solutions could be used in a centralized model?
Yeah.
And how does that benefit the customer?
Absolutely. Well, I think if you look at historically in multifamily, when we need to solve a problem, we typically get more leads, right? Like you're like, oh, our vacancy is up. We have issues. More leads, right?
Yeah.
You can't solve more leads if people aren't there to be able to answer those leads.
Yes.
And then you keep trying to solve the problem over and over again. I think my favorite way to look at centralization isn't necessarily from a standpoint of how do we solve the labor issue, even though that's an important thing, right? It's absolutely extremely important, and people are absolutely struggling with labor.
Right.
It's more, how are we more efficient with the leads that we already have, right? So even if we didn't have this labor shortage,
Yeah.
there's just a level of efficiency of, if you need, hey, I'm a camera, right? You need this many leads to get a lease. Well, you do certain things, you maybe only need this many. You do certain things and you only need this many.
Yeah.
And what we've seen in the centralization model is you get to a point where you don't need as many leads. And guess what? When you don't have as many leads, maybe the labor shortage doesn't hurt you as much.
Yes.
Because now you don't have one person managing 400 leads a month. Now they're managing 150, and they can do that more easily, right? So there's a lot of different ways, and I'm excited. We're going to talk more about it. A lot of different ways you can make it work.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I completely agree. And I think we were talking before we started this today that if I still had our assets and was in property management, I would completely be embracing the centralized model.
Yeah.
We had your fearless leader, Todd Cattler, joined us at the Resmania conference. We had a panel talking about, this changing business model.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're speaking to. I mean, I would certainly hope as business leaders that we would always want to, look for those efficiencies.
Yeah.
But the reality of life is we get buried in what we're doing, and we can't always step back to appreciate where we could get those gains.
Oh, yeah.
And the other dirty secret in our little industry is I don't know a single management company I've ever come across that has time on site to actually get done every single thing that should get done.
Absolutely not.
So even if we weren't, you're right, even if we weren't in a labor shortage, what would you do with the efficiencies gained from, talk about our CRM, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about that for a minute. How much impact can that have in an organization that maybe doesn't have one today?
Well, so when you look at, again, going back to that, how do you be more efficient with your leads, right? At the end of the day, the old ways we used to look at things were, how quickly are you following up, right? Are you following up every 3 days, every 6 days? Let's make sure they follow up, right? But what type of follow-up should they do, right? Should I be calling every single lead that comes in that comes in through Zillow? Am I supposed to call every single person? Am I supposed to send an email to every single person? Is that scalable? Is that efficient? Right? So when you look at the ability to customize your sales cycle the way a sales organization really would, you start to look at, okay, well, let's funnel some of this through automated responses, maybe AI, whatever it may be, so that people can self-select. They can choose when they want to schedule their own appointment. They don't necessarily always have to talk to someone on the phone. And so it's all about, how do I make these leads and funnel them through these different channels so that we get them what we want them, right? And we want them to eventually come into our unit, whether that's with a person, virtually, self-guided, we don't care, right? We should allow them to figure that out.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your insight and what you're sharing. And I think, as we think about property management and the cyclical nature of what we do, one of the cycles that's going to come back around also has to do with budgets. And, I don't know that any of us have a true confidence about, are the historical leasing cycles we've seen in the past going to come back?
Yeah.
How do you go into, because I will tell you, I happen to be engaged as a product manager with our budgets platform, and talking to our focus groups, trying to budget in 2021 was a nightmare.
Oh, yeah.
And then just coming into 2022, we had really some incredible results at the end of 2021. Now we're coming into really, I think, feeling the constraints of inflation and the constraints of what's happening in our local markets. And so now as people are thinking about, I mean, we're going to come back from this event at NAA and it's going to be budget time.
Yeah.
Right. And so I wonder, and I wonder if you engage with your base about how can engagement tools like fit into a centralized business model, and how could that materially impact your bottom line, whether it's helping create more revenue, or is it really just something that falls through from an operating expense side?
Yeah. Well, let's talk first on the financial side, and
Okay.
there's also like the technology side,
Okay.
right? And it's funny you mentioned budgets. Like if people are worried about their budgets this year, I've never had so many people ask me what their pricing will be next year so early in the year.
Oh, really?
I'm getting budget questions as of like 2 months ago. And I'm like,
Really?
it's kind of early. Like it's April and you
Yeah.
already want it. Anyway, so you're not alone if you're having budget issues, right?
Okay.
And looking at the future. But looking at the financial side. So the first thing is, there's a lot of discussion about people, right? And obviously we love people. We want people engagement, right? People, it's challenging. It's hard to hire. We were talking about that a minute ago.
Yeah.
It's hard to rehire. You have a lot of turnover, right?
Yes.
And so you have to start looking at what are people doing on site and what could be done on site that could be done off site. Doesn't necessarily mean we're getting a bunch of robots and just using technology, right? We still want people, but what are some of those things, right? One of the options or one of the things that you look at is lead follow-up. Does the person doing lead follow-up have to be on site? Could they be in a centralized location, acting more as a traditional salesperson? And I know leasing agents hate sometimes, not all of them.
Yeah.
They hate
I
like
know.
we're not salespeople. I'm a leasing agent. Like your job is to lease apartments. Like that kind of is. Now you do a lot of things,
You're
right?
positioning value, and that is sales.
Exactly. And you're helping people. Like not every salesperson is a sleazy person. I mean, I'm a salesperson. I don't think I'm sleazy, right? I don't think so.
Not
Right?
That's funny.
I mean, I think that's the
Yeah.
fear. Is like a leasing agent's like,
They don't
"What?
want to be characterized that way because they have a connotation in their brain about what it means to be a
Yeah.
salesperson.
And don't get me wrong, they're helping residents. They're doing all these other things. There are certain things that you cannot take offsite. So the first thing you have to do is analyze what can I do offsite and what can't I.
Right.
And when you talk to different companies, some of them are going to have different answers, right? And if I were talking to somebody, there's certain things that I would tell them I would maybe agree with, and certain things I wouldn't agree with. But we're very early in this.
Yes.
Everybody was like, "Oh, are you doing centralization yet?"
Yeah.
Almost nobody's doing it yet, right? So don't feel like you're super behind.
Yeah.
You first need to analyze,
Yes.
and then you look at, okay, I have some people now that are maybe following up with leads. They're doing the outbound calls. They're working in a CRM the way I do, right? The way a lot of the salespeople on this floor are doing. And when you do that, you probably can have one person do a lot more than that one person on site who's dealing with the resident and dealing with all this other stuff, right? That alone, just that human efficiency of putting them in a location and recognizing what they're good at is going to save you on the financial side.
Yes. And I think you had a great point, though, earlier when you said that you've got to, I don't know if I characterized it the right way, but your point was you got to meet the prospects and renters where they are, right?
Yeah.
So having the different channels available. And if you think about it from that perspective, like what does the calls look like from a chat perspective, a man chat, an online chat versus, in office, missed calls that have gone to the black hole of a voicemail, or having somebody that's manning in one centralized location. How do you make the most of that situation? And I think you're right on. You've got to be able to have that flexibility.
Yes.
Because I think we've got other challenges that this can help compensate for.
Yeah.
It may seem unrelated, but when we talk about people and we say we love people, we have a real maintenance people problem. And the salaries are going up and they have to go up.
Yes.
And so if you're, when you can find those efficiencies, I would assume there's some monetary savings that can literally drop straight to the bottom line, or at least drop down to where salaries are.
Yeah, absolutely. When you also look at it from going back to that people perspective and that follow-up perspective, I mentioned earlier, do you have to follow up with every single lead that comes in, right? So going back to now the technology side, is your CRM or is your follow-up, does it have really good automation that's pushing people towards being able to schedule their own appointments, right? Being able to do self-guided tours, being able to do these different things. I know people are sometimes scared of self-guided tours, but we're not saying push everyone to do self-guided tours, get rid of people altogether. We're saying give people choice, right? You and I'm just guessing, I wouldn't choose a self-guided tour personally. I like people. I want to show up. I want to say hi. My wife will get mad because I'm going to ask you where you're from. I'm going to ask you about your grandmother. I'm going to talk to you about food. We're going to sit there for 30 minutes and my wife's going to be like, can we go? Like, this is taking forever. But then other people are going to say, No, I want to just walk in the door, and I don't need someone there. I want to sit there and think. I want to be by myself. And guess what? That tour saved you money because now you did it through a self-guided tour and you didn't have a human there doing it.
Yeah.
Now, is the human element out of it? No, because now in your CRM, someone's getting a task or something.
Yeah.
Call that person.
Yeah.
Talk to them. Get them to fill out an application.
Yeah.
There's still a human element, but you don't need a
It's
human
just
element.
where does the human element need to fit into the new business model?
Exactly.
Yes.
And you're giving the person a choice.
Yes.
You're giving the renter a choice, which in the end, we went back to that whole like, you need this many leads to get a lease. Everything that we do and that everyone here does, not just, my company, everyone, it's how do we make this more efficient, right?
Yeah.
So if you're getting better, you're saving money this way. Because
Yes.
let's be honest, we love our ILS vendors, but sometimes that's some of our biggest expenses on the operations side.
Oh, I remember. I
Yeah.
remember avidly in my budgets having that discussion. So I think when you were talking about that having these different options, right? People have their choices. Do you feel like the renters' expectations have just changed in general towards our industry?
I was thinking about this, and this was like the one answer that I was thinking, because I knew you were going to go down this path, and I was like, how do I talk about people? And we're going to be real. People are way meaner today than they were 3 years ago. Do you agree with that?
There's a lack of a filter. People don't think about the way they communicate how to make somebody feel. I would agree with that.
And I feel like there's also this like we've always been an instant gratification world, but even more, right? And I don't know if that's because of TikTok or I don't know if it's because of social media. I don't know what it is, but there's this element of like I want something when I want it, right? Like I want food. Luckily, we're in San Diego. There's good food everywhere, right? I'm plugging San Diego now. I'm originally from here. I love this city so much.
He wants to make sure NA comes back around.
Yeah,
again.
come back. Keep coming to San Diego. It's a great place. But Uber Eats, like I want something, I want it now. So when you're talking to the
Instant
consumer,
gratification.
like if they want a tour, so one thing that we found is we answer. One of the things that we do is we answer phone calls, and everyone knows that about us. So luckily, we have data of when people call. How likely do they want a tour, and how soon do they want a tour? Okay. 47% of callers want a tour within 24 hours.
Really?
Either today or tomorrow.
Wow.
They're not like, oh, I'm thinking about coming by in a couple days.
Huh.
Most of them are saying, I want a tour right now, or I want a tour within 24, like tomorrow morning.
Wow.
Right? So again, back to that, and that number's only
Oh
gone
my gosh. So the epiphany, and hearing you say that, and going back and putting my old operator hat on, what I took away from what you just said is if you don't have the right tools in place and you're not responding those calls, people don't search for just one apartment. They search for multiple.
Yes.
And if they're looking to go out and make that connection within 24 hours, if you're not set up to accommodate that, how much business are you not getting exposed to?
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. Epiphany moment.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm betting you knew that already.
Yeah, kind of, right? I mean, but it doesn't go to like, how do you solve that problem? There are many ways to solve that problem, right? And if you look at this floor here, some people are doing more automation. Some people are elementing or, bringing in third-party services. Some people are doing AI stuff. There's ways to solve that problem. You don't have to do one solution or another. I think they all have their merits, but you really have to think about this. Because if you're not giving people instant gratification, you're missing out on leases. And if you're missing out on leases, what are you doing? You're buying more leads.
Yes.
And you're stressing your people out. And now you have turnover because they're like, this isn't working.
This is called expense management and optimizing your spend.
Exactly.
Okay. So in thinking about what we were just talking about, if I think about the operators that and the property management companies that you are inevitably in front of to talk about your products, what do you think is the struggle, or do you still hear or do you still perceive a struggle for people that are like not ready to make that leap? Because I will just say, so in hearing from one of my own customers that's up in Denver, really apprehensive to allow technology to basically take away from what they think is their true value prop, which is their people.
Yeah.
And I believe that there is real value in their people, but I also think there is something to be said for the technology, and they're missing opportunities. And I mean, I'm a people person just like you are. I love me some people. But I also think you've got to be responsible to your business, make the most of it, and you have to evolve. You don't want to be the next Blockbuster story, right? So what do you say to somebody who is still struggling, that has not embraced technology at this point?
Yeah. one of my favorite quotes. It's gonna sound unrelated, but Mark Cuban, he said something, and I'm quoting him incorrectly. I'm sure I am. It was something like, "Don't do what you love, do what you're good at." And it was all about. He was talking to young people, right? He's like, "What you're good at, as you do it, you will specialize in that, and then you'll grow to love it." And the whole thing was all about like specialization, right? And when you look at a leasing agent's job today, they do so many things.
Yes.
They wear so many hats.
Yeah, that hasn't changed, by the way.
Yeah.
What, almost 30 years for me.
And you may have a leasing agent that is an amazing salesperson, but when they have a resident yelling at them, when they're dealing with this over here, when this over there, they're not always Tony Robbins in their demo of that. Now, some of them are. Some of them are great. They're always on. They're amazing. But the majority are probably not Tony Robbins.
Well, and based on what you just said too about the way that residents and prospects are interacting with us, this lack of filter, the lack of even common courtesy, it's got to be even harder on them to turn it on and off.
Yeah, I mean, haven't you ever been to a restaurant where you can just tell that server has had a rough day?
Oh yeah, I've changed tables.
Really?
Because I can sense. Yeah, when I start to see it, I'm like, I'll make an excuse. We just want to sit at the bar because I look to going out to dinner as an experience.
Yeah.
I mean, when I do it, I want to enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so if I don't want it to ruin my mojo.
And that server may be the greatest server in the world. 7-10 days out of, or let's say 6 days out of the week.
Yep.
But that day they were just struggling, they were angry, something going on, right? So first off, I know not to discount our amazing leasing agents, but I don't believe, and this is my own opinion, that they are the ones truly selling that unit, maybe as much as we think they are, right? I'm not saying let's remove the human element though.
Yeah.
I'm saying, going back to that Mark Cuban quote, right? Specialization. Yes. Let people specialize at what they're good at. So let your really good salespeople be really good salespeople, right? Don't make them be an accountant and a triager of maintenance requests, and don't make them do 17 different things. So your good salespeople can be good salespeople. Your good property manager could be a good. Maybe you have someone that's really, really good at renewals, right? Maybe you have
somebody who's really good at answering the phone and doesn't like to be in person, but is for whatever reason more comfortable on the phone.
Exactly.
So put them, centralize them in a leasing office or corporate office and let them handle this portfolio or that portfolio. But love that.
But now that you said that, it also makes me think the onus. It's on you, right? It's on you to know how to use your people the right way. Like, people will come to us all the time. They're like, "We are on a centralized. Show us how." And I'm like, "Show you how? I can show you some software. I can give you some ideas." But
do you do it with that same face you just gave us?
Yeah, exactly. Show us how. Like I can't just magically sit down and just say, "Here's the magic wand. You are now centralized." Right. A lot of this is a process. So there's. Can I mention a specific company that's not one of our customers?
Sure.
It's publicly, so UDR. Okay. Right? If you think, and I just heard this from somebody else, so I want to give credit to that person. He said, if you don't think centralization works, go look at the last 3 or 4 earning calls and earning statements from UDR. They're publicly traded, and they've been focusing heavily. I know I'm plugging them. I know nobody at UDR. I don't have any connection to them at all, but it works.
It does work.
And you talk to some people who've tried it, and I know it's a little scary, but the thing is you have to put the onus on yourself to figure out how to make it work. And then you have to work with somebody who can help you, but they can't do it for you.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's plenty of people
Nobody knows your business like you do.
Nobody knows your business like you do.
I completely agree with that. Yeah. So as we're thinking about centralization, one of the things that has to come up, I love the idea of having, my best sales professional on the phone. Love having them back at the corporate office. I like the concept of having them answer calls, but they're not going to get to every call.
They're not going to get to every call.
And then we don't staff 24/7. So there's an after hours need. And now the concept of normal business hours to our renters does not exist anymore.
Yeah.
So I know obviously we know you have a call center. So I do want to talk about it a little bit though, because I do think there's a misconception about the value sometimes that a centralized call center can bring to an organization. And just hearing from other customers, I think sometimes I hear things about frustration levels that to me seem like the expectations are perfection. Like I'm bringing in a call center, not only to centralize, but so that I will get perfect shopping scores on every single call.
Yeah. No, that doesn't happen.
No, it doesn't happen in property
that,
management.
That doesn't
It
happen.
doesn't happen on our site.
We shop our customers all the time. We actually have there's a lot of services out there that will grade property phone calls themselves. Yeah, they're not as great as we hope they would be, right? But to your point on this, I think one of the things that people have to realize is we talked about your best leasing agent or your best sales professional being a sales professional. That doesn't mean they should answer all your inbound phone calls, because the majority of your inbound phone calls are not people who are going to lease the apartment. No matter how efficient you're going to get a bunch of leads that don't qualify. Their first question is, do you accept this that I have that you don't, whether it's a pet or it's a Ford, whatever it may be, right? And so now you're going to take your best person, because you're thinking, if the best person answers the call, they're going to get a bunch of leases. No, because now that best person is just filtering. They're just triaging, and they're not spending time with the best potential leads, right?
Yes.
So the purpose of contact centers and AI and all those other things is to help triage the leads into who are the best people that your best people should be talking to.
Yes.
Right? And so when you do that, it doesn't mean you answer all the phone calls. Now, I know there's a lot of really, really big REITs out there that have gotten to the point where maybe they have their own internal contact centers. We work with almost all the large single family institutions. Okay. Right? You're talking about centralization. I mean, they're the ones that have done it for years.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
And
once again, we're behind on this.
Yes. They cannot, they all try to build their own contact centers. What I can tell you is none of them succeed until they get to a really large number. Yeah. And then even when they do, most of them still come to us or someone like us to do an overflow function. Okay. Because to answer 100% of your phone calls, you can answer 70% of your phone calls decently well and pretty expensively. To answer 100%, those costs just skyrocket.
Yes,
when you have, or even to answer 90%, it just skyrockets, right? So the purpose of a contact center is to help make sure that you have your leads triaged well, get the information that they want, so that your best people can work with the best leads.
Yes.
Right.
And I think that's a great point, because we're not looking to the call center to replace and do the sales job for us.
Correct.
And if that's your expectation, you're going to be sadly disappointed.
Yep.
But if you go into it understanding, I'm going to be able to at least get the right information for follow-up, for triaging the leads, as you said. We want to spend time with the high quality leads, right? Ones that we have a potential opportunity to close. That's fantastic. And I'm so glad that you pointed it out, because I hear it, and I hear it even in places like here at NA already. And it's frustrating. So it's got to be frustrating for you too. But
absolutely.
But I think if we can help spread the word about that, it's realistic expectations and understanding. It's just like the ad that we have a wonderful marketing team. As great as our booth is here, the booth does not do our jobs for us. Right? It's a vehicle for us to get in front of the right people, doing for the right reasons, and spend our time wisely.
Absolutely. I mean, honestly, if you listen to phone calls, the majority of the people, they're calling with one quick question.
Yep.
They don't want to talk. The average phone call on site, if I remember right, is like 4.5 minutes. I'm sorry, I don't remember the exact number, but it's short.
Yeah.
I mean, people are like, hey, is this unit available? Do you accept dogs?
Yeah.
Do you accept vouchers? Like, they're just asking one or two quick questions. They're not like, so tell me about the duck pond. Tell me about what it's like when I live there. What are my friends like? And then you have fair housing. I mean, then you can't even answer half those questions, right? So I'm glad we brought that up, right?
Oh, me too.
And I think the other thing I would say is when you look at the technology partners that you're looking at when it comes to centralization, the tough thing is that most of the technology out there is really not patterned for centralization.
Yes.
Right? So traditional property management, one person is one guest card at one property. That's not how sales works, right?
No.
If I own 10 communities that are all within a couple miles, or even 2, I don't care if they lease at one or the other one. I just want them to lease, right? And so traditional property management is like, okay, I just put it in my PM software. Here's one person. Oh, maybe my people are good at doing sister property referrals. But even if I do, is that source attribution really carrying over?
Yeah.
Do I actually see what's happening?
Yeah.
No, now I've just sent the lead over, and leasing agent over here and leasing agent over here are working those two leads completely separately.
Yeah, or the lead completely falls into some sort of twilight zone.
Oh, yeah. I've asked you before, how do you do like a sister property referral? Oh, we take a screenshot And then and this isn't all of them, right?
No,
but
but
it's
I know
like,
what you're
or they say like, oh, let me just call them. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, there are platforms out there where I can see both properties right here,
Yes.
right?
I know one in particular that will let you see your entire portfolio with user permissions.
Yes, absolutely,
So
right?
we can centralize somebody, and that's why I love this topic of conversation. I think it's been a long time coming for the industry.
Yeah.
And we need to take advantage of it and free our people up to do the things that they really are good at.
Yeah.
And I think people also, as renters, expectations I do feel have changed. I think people are valuing, even though it doesn't always look like it. We're talking about all this automation, but in your home, you still want that sense of community. And we have to get back to thinking about how do we bring renters together? How do we create a wonderful community environment for people to live at? Because then that's when they'll stay. That's when they'll make the decision in a tough economy, which we could be facing. If I'm going to have to buddy up with somebody, and maybe we're going to do roommate situations now, I want it to be this property.
Well, and that's a big trend. And like, I don't sell anything with renter engagement type things, right? So like, I'm not here to plug anything about that. Like if you look at the majority of my customers have been asking more and more about resident engagement, resident customer experience, communities. And there's a lot of great vendors around here that do those things, right? And I think that's something that people are really focused on.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear that because as we talked about, we love people.
We love people.
We love people.
We love people.
Well, guys, first off, thank you for taking some time. I know you're here. It's a busy, crazy environment, but I'm just so excited. I didn't know that you were a fellow product person, so that brownie points. But you did great. So thank you for taking the time to come talk with me.
Yeah, this has been great. I love it. I love people. So thank you.
Yeah, we're doing is it jazz hands or snaps? Snaps for Jamie. All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one.